Hi, let's talk about the books that I read so far. Up until now, I read 8 books, of which 2 of them were mangas. Don't worry, I know what you're thinking. I'm not gonna talk about them, not today. I'm gonna put them in a dedicated segment at the end of the monthly wrap-up, so that people who are still interested can look at it and know where to find it, but others who are not, they can skip on it, you know. So now I have 6 books left on my list of books that I want to talk about, of which I'm gonna start with Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, because it is the one that I have the least to say about. Bottom line is, I loved Clara and the Sun. It was exactly what I hoped it would be. And I found myself thinking about it constantly in between the breaks whenever I stopped reading, and now that I finished it, I still think about it. Phenomenal book, phenomenal writing, like really a master at his craft, but I'm not gonna talk too much about it because, first of all, I don't want to give you a lot of information on this, since I'm still very convinced that the less you know about his books, the better, because they then have more impact on you. But I also have made a complete and singled out video on Clara and the Sun, so if you're interested in more of my thoughts, you can go and watch this one. I wouldn't recommend it though if you still want to read that book. If you are okay with books that are not chasing the thrill or plots that are not super adventurous, and have no problem taking a more subliminal message, then maybe this one is for you. If you're generally more bored by this kind of stuff or it overwhelms you for whatever reason, I wouldn't necessarily advise you to read it. But if you're uncertain, it is a short book, so in the worst case scenario, you've just wasted a little bit of time. The best case scenario, your mind was blown. So your choice if you want to do that. For me, it was a definitive 5 out of 5 stars. Oh, and here I'll insert my copy of it. Forgot to show you this one. This is Clara and the Sun. And then I read 3 thrillers this month. At least, like, I finished 3 thrillers this month. The Turn of the Key I started in October, which I mentioned in my vlog. Thriller is a genre that hits probably the tropes that I dislike and my pet peeves most frequently. For example, I don't really like stories in which psychologists are a character with a lot of focus on them. But hey, why am I giving you this exact example? Because it so happens that 2 out of the 3 thrillers which I read had a psychologist in them, and I'm gonna use it as a segue to talk about my first book, which is called The App by Arno Strobel. This is one in which a psychology student goes fucking overdrive. I'm talking IT expert, trainee at the police department, top tier investigative journalism skills, and general mind reader. That's actually a very, very accurate representation of psychology students. No, that's what they do. Anyways, this is a German thriller and there's no translation of it, so I'm gonna keep it short. I just picked it up because I wanted to read a bad thriller. This is a very, I don't know, difficult thing to say on booktube. When do you ever pick up a book that you don't like and you pick it up because you don't like it? Generally, I don't think that is a likable characteristic of a person if they just want to pick up a book to make fun of them. But honestly, German thriller authors, they like sand on the shore. There are so many of them and there are so many bad thrillers, and I just sometimes want to turn off my hat and have dumb fun, you know what I'm saying? Like, just laugh at the unplausibleness of the plot and about this over dramatized writing that they all seem to, especially main authors, kind of seem to have ingrained in their blood. I don't know what it is. There are phenomenal thrillers out there. That's not the point. Anyways. Forgive me, but I think in the future you will see me doing this from time to time, which doesn't mean that I think the book doesn't have its purpose. It definitely has fulfilled something if it just made me laugh, and therefore I had quite a good time. So in this book there's a bunch of kidnappings in the beginning that happen, and at first it looks like the people have left on their own terms, but after a while it gets discovered that they actually were kidnapped, and one of the people whose partner went missing starts to investigate himself because, yeah, the police doesn't really believe him at first. It is super blockbustery written, so you know, the type of writing that would rather fit on a TV screen than on book pages, from the vibe. But yeah, it has something to it, you know, sometimes why not. I didn't like the main character. Nothing more to say, 2 out of 5 stars. There is, however, a smart home device involved in this story, as well as in the one that I'm going to talk about next, which is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is unarguably the best one out of the 3 thrillers that I've read. It has very good writing in terms of keeping you on the edge of your seat and the pages turned. It has a paranormal component to it, which I appreciate because I am very scared of that and I enjoy a good scare. So that was really fun. Generally, it is about a nanny who takes up a post in a house to look after 3 children while the parents are on a business trip. The ending, however, was a bit underwhelming. I've just recently read or seen something that had the same ending, which was unfortunate, but kind of, you know, therefore it underwhelmed me. I don't know exactly what it is, but it felt kind of unsatisfactory. Maybe it was because the twist felt kind of like a curveball. It wasn't necessarily out of nowhere, but the truth was very well hidden, let's say. 3 out of 5 stars. I always forget to show you my copies because I have my laptop on my lap and now my hands are occupied, so okay, I hope you don't mind. But for this one, I'm gonna show you my copy because I'm gonna need it. Oh man, it's shiny. Okay, the next one that I'm gonna talk about, which is the last thriller that I read, is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This is about a woman who is trapped in her own home due to agoraphobia, which is an extreme fear of public and open spaces. She spies on her neighbors because she's bored, and one day she just sees something she better not should have seen. 2 stars. I'm gonna tell you why. This is, by the way, the second book that I've read with a psychologist in this, or at least like, okay, previously it was a psychology student. This time it's a real psychologist. This one was surprisingly okay in describing the work of a psychologist, but there was still a couple of parts in there where I just, you know, had to clap my palm against my face. Hard. Oh my god, just especially like these therapy sessions that she has with other people. I mean, I don't think that they're therapy sessions as therapy sessions, but whenever she's like sliding into a role of psychologist and then she's like doing her work and she gives very, very superficial advice, I have to roll my eyes, okay? Anyways, there's also, because there is a psychologist in here, a little bit of villainization of mental health illness in here. I'm not gonna tell you when it comes in, and I don't want to spoil you. I have to put this book away. I'm sorry. I mean, talking about mental health illnesses is not bad if it's put into realistic measures. Don't villainize people. Don't make their disease the reason for why they are evil. It's always kind of used as the whole explanation for everything. So to say, naturally, because you are this, you are doing this. Instead of being like, oh, because this happened to you, you felt like this, and that made you act this way. It would just make the whole story more relatable. Throwing a random mental health disorder in the room just to explain everything. That to me feels, first of all, cheap, second of all, no, other way around. First of all, insulting, second of all, cheap. I don't think that is a good thriller. Anyways, this story is also one that suffers a bit too much from the old principle, tell, don't show. I really don't think that Anna's feelings come across well, but maybe that's just the author not really knowing how to describe emotions or how to write emotions. And if the whole story was written in third person, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it as I do have. But this is in the first perspective. I just feel like an observer rather than like feeling what she feels and through that experiencing the book. Anyways, also I want to show you something because I don't know, I got very excited with that book, I guess. This author, A.J. Finn, so he is very long-winded in his writing. He takes a lot of time to say nothing. And I want to show you an example of that by reading a passage to you. What the crux is. I'm only gonna read the first sentence of each paragraph to you, and I bet that you will perfectly understand what is going on. This isn't a spoiler to the main story, by the way. It is, though, revealing the incident that led to Anna being agoraphobic. It's not the reason why she is, but it is definitely like the traumatic event that happened to her and that led to this outcome. I'll put a timestamp in the description box and you can, use it if you want to. So here we go. Ed. My vision swam in a low tide of red. I breathed, choked. I choked again. I said his name, or tried to, one breathy syllable in the chill, a little cloud of smoke. The seatbelt was slicing against my waist, wire taut. Olivia was strapped into the back seat, suspended there, her ponytail dangling. My elbow folded, my legs dropped to one side, landed hard on the spider-webbed glass of the sunroof. Screamed. Livy. I jammed my thumb into her seatbelt buckle. Hey! I stretched forward and pressed my hands to the ground outside, felt the burning snow against my palms, and rolled onto my back. The sky was a bowl of stars and space. Back to Earth. I dove back through the doorway, hooked my fingers in the down of Olivia's jacket. I laid her beside the car, then tucked her back in case it should capsize. Ed next. There he was, his skin warm red in the woozy ambulance light of the dashboard. Well, that's the scene, and I know that you know what was going on, unless you didn't listen to me, which I am mad about. Anyways, I wanted to show you that, to emphasize how much of the descriptions in this book are actually redundant. I mean, you don't really need more to grasp the situation than the first sentence. There are so many moments in which she just talks to other people without the story moving along, or which just watches movies, drinks alcohol, like scenes that are there to establish an atmosphere that doesn't need to be established anymore. Maybe you can argue that he just wanted to portray the boredom that she felt being stuck in the same house for over 10 months at this point. I would have appreciated, I think, if it wasn't for the genre. It just robs the thriller of its thrill. What a bad joke. Also, what didn't help is that every twist was very, very predictable. I think, okay, one of the twists, I gotta admit, got me good. But the others I saw from like a mile away. Some people do appreciate, though, whenever they still can follow the tracks being laid and, the hints given. But I personally felt like the story wasn't so well crafted that it was fun to watch, the traps being laid. Because there were basically no traps. It was just Anna never really thinking of another possibility than what she first thought of. The author, I think, must have a feeling for what the reader is going to think in certain moments, and sometimes good thriller writers take that opportunity and play with the reader's expectations. But some authors, I feel like they are so afraid of their twist getting caught that they so rigidly look in one direction without ever hinting at a very valid possibility, which just gets the reader suspicious, in my opinion. Okay, second to last book that I read is Thomas Bernhard's Heldenplatz. Gotta look at the English title, just a second. It's called Heldenplatz because Heldenplatz is an actual place in Vienna. So this was actually the fourth book that I read by Thomas Bernhard. Thomas Bernhard is like a really, really renowned author in Austria. He's one of the authors that you read in school that Austria is very proud to have, more internally than externally, I don't know. He's not very international, I would say, because he's rather talking about issues concerning inner Austrian stuff, especially Viennese things. Oh my god, I hope no Austrians listen to me, because that is like a very bad description. Anyways, it's been translated into English in 2010. I wouldn't recommend to read it though if you're not Austrian. Actually, not even if you're not Viennese, because it has a very, very Viennese style And I don't think that you can appreciate it if you don't understand the mindset. There is literally nothing else that guy does in the book than to shit on everything. Vienna the most, but everything else as well. And that's his thing. That's what he does. So like the 4th book that I read that is like that. And I feel like I've been reading the same book the 3rd time now, because the first one doesn't count, it was a memoir. Like there are so many words in Austrian slang, especially Viennese slang, that just say that somebody is complaining about something, and that's what he does. It's called Sudan. I would say it's Sudan. It's complaining about something without any reason. Like, I understand why Viennese people like this guy, because he's basically the Viennese spirit in a nutshell, but it's not very innovative. This is a critique on society, also on the politics at the time, which simultaneously feels outdated and more accurate than ever, but his probably most favorite topic to complain about is the Austrian culture and art industry, which I can understand why critics like him, because they also don't really appreciate. No, just kidding. And I also realized the irony of me complaining about a book that is complaining about literature, art, theater. This is the play, by the way. So he's complaining about theater in his book, and I'm complaining about a play. He would be proud of me, maybe. I don't know, maybe this is actually a meta-critique, you know, and he's really just reflecting what the society thinks of the theaters and making fun of it by having them overly complain about everything and not realizing that they're just, you know, having nothing to complain about. Whatever. I'm a bit over his writing at this point. I gave the book 3 out of 5 stars. Maybe I'm gonna give it another try, but I'm gonna have to wait for a little while. That was enough for a year at least. My final book for now is Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. This is about a boy who gets bullied at school. Severely. So this is your trigger warning. If you are not good with violence, stay away from this book. There are more violent books out there, but it's definitely not violent. There are some scenes that were hard to get through, that's what I'm trying to say, oh my god. One day when he's at school, he finds a letter that is glued to the underside of his table, and in that letter it says, "We're of the same kind." Turns out that the letter is coming from a girl at his school that is going through the same issues as he is. And so because they are in the same situation, they start writing to each other. They almost become pen pals, but this is not a pen pal story. It is another story. And I didn't really know what to make of it, but I appreciate a book that is challenging my current belief system, and this one definitely did. At least it confused me. It's talking a lot about morals and about what is right and wrong, and whether someone is weak or strong. From a place in the world that is probably considered to be the Western side, this seems a very unconventional way to talk about the topic. But I found it to be good. Like, I appreciated this new approach to it, although it's weird but good. But yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. One last thing though. If you're considering to read the German translation of Heaven, I will tell you, because this is the German translation, that this one is translated pretty well. I don't know if you have the same problem as I do, but oftentimes when I come across Japanese, Korean or Chinese translations, the writing seems very boxy and I cannot really feel myself into the story. And I have to say that this translator is better than most that I've read. There are still passages that seem very clunky, but all in all I was very happy with this way of translation. Just wanted to throw that in here. So with that, I'm done talking about the books that I've read so far this month. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for listening if you did. And I will see you at another time in another video.